So today we're going to talk about climate resilience and building agri-food systems that are resilient to the effects of climate change. And I think the one thing I'd perhaps start with is we've probably all watched Clarkson's Farm and seen the nail-biting finale to every single season seems to be when he sits down with Charlie and they look at the numbers. And every time we wonder whether there's been any money made over the entire season of hard work. Let's not comment on Jeremy Clarkson's farming skills, but I think it is safe to say like farming is a difficult business and there is not a lot of money in farming. And so then the question is, well, how then do you invest in the long-term building climate resilience when there are so many competing priorities for the farmer dollar? So perhaps that's a good place to start. And maybe, Mark, you can kick us off with why bother investing into climate resilience?
Great question. So in a world where farmers are under huge pressure, farm incomes are under massive pressure in the UK, as many of you will know, we've got things like access to labour, we've got challenges around chemical applications and their lack of availability now, we've got farm machinery and equipment at prices, eye-watering prices compared to pre-COVID, and you've got the erratic weather. All of that means that sort of climate action for the average farmer is fairly well down the list. That's the reality. But we frame it as being about maintaining marketable yield and about availability. So, for example, if you have soils with good structure and with good carbon levels, then they're going to not only hold water better, they're going to drain better, so you can get on the land in that wet harvest that you otherwise wouldn't. If you really understand the amazing microbiology that goes on in the soil that can establish a crop that otherwise it wouldn't have established in the long, hot, dry spell, then you are going to be materially better off and operate a lower risk farm. So that's how we think about the thing, really, George. It's about marketable yield and availability.
Maybe, Paula, you can help us learn, because you operate in a very different, very climate-exposed crop.
Sure. Yes, in our case, we invested because you would like to have more resilience. If you have more resilience, you have less risk than longevity to do the business. That's the key thing. And then we start all of things over there. It keep the soil is the key element to that. So basically you're trying to be less product dependent to more process alike. So open mind to that and look at the farm in a holistic way.
Yeah, maybe Bing and Steve as well. Give us your sense. I mean, Bing, you work for Nutreco. You're a large input provider. Why is this important? Are you hearing anything from your farmers that this is a priority for them? Are you building products to help them in that?
Yeah, our purpose is really feeding the future, and that is why it is really core to our strategy that we are the partner for the farmers for sustainable farming. Feed is a big part of the farming, and then we would like to influence that through our expertise, that is feed.
Sure, I think that one of the things we talk about when we talk about resilience is really economic resilience, and it's just kind of interesting how over the last 10 years, the ability to invest in some of these regenerative practices has also helped us economically. And for instance, if we look at our soil testing grids, we went from a field test to a 2.5 acre grid, now to a 1/2 acre grid. So we can put those nutrients, where they need to go. And then also when we harvest that commodity, whether it be corn, soybeans, wheat, then we can actually, put fertilizer back where the biggest, yields came from, and we're not just doing a general application. So just in that one practice alone has saved, quite a bit of money by putting things where they belong and not just doing a open broadcast.
And so it sounds like there's both an efficiency driver in that doing more with less. But I think I'd be curious whether you've also seen a resilience driver in that is the climate really getting more difficult to grow in, or is climate change a hoax and we should all just kind of crack on? Like, just give us a sense of like what it actually feels and looks like on the front line of building a profitable agri-food company.
Sure, I'll start one side. So one of the biggest things we do is cover crops and no-till, trying to build up that the carbon base or the organic matter in the soil. We know that with more organic matter, we have better holding capacity for water, better nutrient holding capacity, and so those are a lot of things we're looking at. And we just got our latest soil samples back, so we soil sample every 4 years on a quarter acre or a half acre grid, and then we'll come back and ground truth it 4 years later using yield data in between for the applications. And organic matter within those 4 year period with cover crops and no-till has gone up 2% over that 2 year or 4 year period. So that's another way that we're going to continue to build that resilience and again, hopefully make that economic benefit.
Yeah. And Paula, we were speaking just before this conversation about that you're actually seeing climate change almost preventing you from being able to grow coffee in the same way that you would have grown it 10 years ago. Just help us understand like what is actually happening, and maybe tell us a bit about. I mean, coffee prices have gone wild over the last few years.
So the pressure is getting higher, so the cost is getting higher, and even if you increase the frequency or the doses of the products, there is not enough. So you see one unbalancing happening in the fields that impacts on financial. So in my point of view, you cannot separate the financials from the environment and social. So everything is together, because sometimes, for example, if you take a very smart decision on environmental, this impact on financial. In our case, beyond the cover crops, because if you have cover crops, you have water infiltrating when raining, because now you are facing draw after draw. So we started this transition 10 years ago with cover crops, and then step by step you are adding more technology, so biologics products, agroforestry, linear agroforestry, in order to reduce a little bit the temperature, mainly in the blossom. That's very important for us. And what you get, we have got 20% of economy in irrigation, because you have more water in the soil. Solar panels. You nowadays you just pay the minimum tax is less than $1 per month, and used to be almost $150,000 per year. So it is, you see, is a environmental decision that impacts on the financials, and reduce also the costs in some. But you have to be very careful, because sometimes they say, oh, okay, you do regen and you lower you have the lower costs. It's not like that. If you compare the transition time, you have to invest on that, so costs more. But, for example, when comes the war, the fertilizers was going up. You had, in that time, cover crops that is capturing nitrogen from the air, and you have choices. You have choices. So I'm not high dependent of this product, but I can do these strategies. And I think in our case, Regen gave us choices, and this is very, very important for farmers nowadays.
And maybe picking up on these,
just to also in Brazil now you have growing up the certifications on regenerative. That really helps the people, because there is no regulation. What is regenerative agriculture? What can be or not, can use or not, is different from organic one for traditional. Oh my God. Sorry. Sorry.
Talking of technology, what is the single most meaningful technology investment that you've made in the last kind of couple years? I mean, ag tech is, again and again, we see a remarkable high-tech robots that will do everything, or a genetics that will completely transform productivity. But like practically, like what have you done? What have you invested into that's made a huge difference on the farm? And what was that difference?
Soil. I think invest in soil, because you invest on soil, you have a lot of gain.
Yeah. And was that technology, or was that
biologically?
Yeah.
Cover crops, you have to keep the soil alive.
Yeah.
And then you have biodiversity under the soil and also above, because if you have cover crops, some of them, they are flowers, and they attract the natural enemies that fight with plagues from coffee. So I have one army.
But these are practices rather than necessarily they're broadly technologies. But I'm kind of, again, like from a venture capital perspective, I'm always on the lookout for the next big $10 million ag outcome. But I'm wondering whether, maybe Mark and Steve, whether you've actually taken out your checkbook, invested in and seen real return that's changed the way that your farm operates.
If I can just come and say it's very practical for us. We farm primarily potatoes, 20,000 of our own crop, and another 380,000 are grown on contract up and down the UK. And to sort of as a link back to the question around climate change, in the last 5 years, we have seen more erratic weather than ever. And so a good example with the investment linking back to the plan to cope with the weather, 2024 was a very wet harvest. And when you've got a root crop, it's very difficult to get out of the ground. So we have invested, along with some of our growers, in £1 million 4-row harvesters at short notice.
Wow.
Rather than the old conventional two-row system, which means you can cope with increasingly unpredictable and narrow harvest windows. So this is
because it's less time in the field.
Yes, because you don't know when you can get on at the crop if it's wet, and you need to get on it with equipment that's lighter on its feet.
But that's £1 million.
Oh,
it's a big capex.
It's huge, and some growers won't be able to finance that. And as other people have said, that the finance service is it's not where it needs to be in terms of enabling.
Were you able to get credit for that, or was that a balance sheet?
We're in a good position, actually. Yeah. We're not beholden to the banks, so we can go out and do that.
You were lucky to be able,
yeah.
Fantastic. And maybe Steve, tell us a bit what you've invested into.
Yeah, I think the biggest investment probably that started everything was when we got the first yield monitor in the combine, and that being able to track that data 30 years ago was what really led us up, I guess, to where we are now. And so when you get into the grid sampling, when you get into prescription seeding and all that stuff coming forward, it's easier for you to make that investment because you see how it's worked in the past. So, I mean, it's not everything when you talk about biologicals and things like that. There's still a good amount of testing that you want to do with those before you make a big broad change. But I think that one item of putting that initial ability to track yields and things is what really made it simpler to go forward and make a lot of our equipment is older, but we're very technology heavy. A lot of add-ons onto that equipment to make it very reasonably priced.
How much have your yields increased over the last 30 years? And has it is this sort of like a linear curve, or have things started ticking off as we've got more volatile weather?
Yeah, so I would say last year we had a decrease in our corn yield, basically weather related. We had almost no rain in June, July, and August. And we really need to have those later August and early September rains to get the crop finished. So that was a big, really disappointment after you do the planning and everything for that. But this year we were right back. We did have a dry August again, but we did have ample rains in June and July and had one of our best yields ever. So I would say for the most part, of course, if you look at Fred Bilo at the University of Illinois, his 7 wonders of corn or soybeans, weather accounts for 70% of your yield. So, if you don't have the weather, your yield's gonna suffer. But for the most part, yeah, they've gone up. I know if you had 180 bushel corn, we would be happy. 30 years ago, really actually ecstatic. And this year our farm average was almost 240.
Wow.
So
Fantastic.
the technology and being able to put things where they belong really has helped.
Yep.
And you asked me what we were doing this winter, and it's basically trying to take all that data, and get prepared for the next.
Well, let's come on to that, because I think the data question is really important. But maybe Bing, tell us, you have been, some of the conversations we had were around some of the aquaculture side of things. Like, tell us a bit about what kind of technologies you're helping farmers adopt from the Nutreco perspective.
Yeah, so in aquaculture, we have been using technologies such as listening to the shrimps in the water.
What are they saying?
Yes, exactly. What did they say? Are they hungry? Or because shrimp farming, the water is not clear enough for the vision technology to apply. So in that sense, the sound technology is very critical here to listen to the shrimp and then capturing that signal for precision farming. So we can gain both sustainability performance and also, better animal welfare performance and cost savings for, more efficient use of feeds. And in land animal, we have also wonderful examples because we all know that by feeding animals better, we can possibly balance that multi-objective puzzle that we're all trying to solve, that sustainability cost saving, right? But it's very complex to really quantify how much benefit we have gained by changing that formulation and changing that feed, because feed is just such a complicated area. Even for the farmers, it's very difficult to grasp. So what we have been doing is trying to make that complexity really simple and accessible for farmers in terms of helping farmers to get reward from that practice. So by nutrition optimization and sustainability optimization on that input side, on the land farming side, for every type of animals that we help farm, we have a model that helps to quantify that benefit of the feed optimization. And then that is combined with a packaged verification deal. So basically for farmers, this is a one-stop shop that they can get very solid science behind the quantification, and that helps them to bridge into a market where they can get valorization for this benefit.
So this is, I think, and this is a great segue into this question around data, because I think a lot of you mentioned that data, having data all the way from the farm up through to through the supply chain is so important to be able to almost connect incentives across the supply chain. Like, it sounds like you're doing just that, Bing.
Yeah.
Is it always easy to encourage farmers to share their data? And then maybe we'll come on to talk to some farmers about what it's like to share data with a big multinational corporate.
Yeah, well, that's why I'm proudly amongst the farmers. So I'm really happy.
They trust you.
Yeah. So I think being with them, not talk to the farmers, but talk with the farmers. And throughout the history of Nutreco, we have been also farmers ourselves, and we now specialized in being the feed specialist, right? What we want to do, and we have been doing very successfully, is building that value chain partnership with our customers. And then through that partnership, we were able to combine our insights, expertise, and data together, because alone we can just optimize so much. But if we combine our data with our farmer partners' data, we're able to optimize more. So that benefit we can share. So through strategic partnerships, we are more open for data sharing, and then we have a benefit sharing model on top of that. Then basically, we allow ourselves to combine expertise and get benefit and optimize on the higher level.
So do farmers get paid? They get paid more, if they give the data. Paula,
good question.
Does that actually happen? Like, as a farmer, do you get paid more by your your customers if they?
No.
Okay, tell us more. Like, do you share data?
No, you finished?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we share data with because we receive a lot of since the beginning when you start the transition, you open the farm gates to the universities, to research institutes. So you have done not alone. You have done with a lot of people, scientists and so on, and exchanging the needs. And we share this with the students. So nowadays is more than 8,000 people impacted with this. We receive in the farmers. You do workshops just to farmers to discuss the challenging and present what's going well, what doesn't work so well. And there is no ready recipe, it's not a cake recipe. So you have to talk and discuss the reality and do the diagnosis, what's each farm is challenging in order to have this or this strategy. Then go to the students, because in the future, one of the challenging that's on region, there is no information available. There is no expertise like the traditional ones. So you sharing with this, because in 2, 3, 4 years, they will be the technicals in the fields. And
Great.
yeah, and with the industry, we share some because, of course, you have the data. But I think this is one thing that could be better discussion. The recognition to the early adopters.
Yeah.
That because we afford that, we are affording the investment. We are doing the investment. So if my product is the same price from the other ones, that I think it's not so fair.
I mean, Mark and Steve, do you get paid a premium? Do you get paid more money if you share, the right data or more data with your, like, give us a sense of like how it works in practice?
I think for us, it's about long-term partnerships. So we are in a great position. We have a long-term deal with our main retail customer, which is Tesco. So, and we also are the only supplier of potatoes into Tesco. So if you like, we call it a MAD strategy. It's sort of mutually assured destruction, really. There's so much kind of in it for us both. And so I'm not a believer in payment for data. Payment for carbon, as long as it's validated and verified, yes, I think that's coming. But payment for data, no, we're all in it together. And we've been very lucky that we've had 4 years of working with a government grant to work towards super low carbon potatoes. And now this year, the 25 crop, we established a low carbon concept farm with Tesco. And we're folding in wheat, broccoli, leeks and peas as well now in rotation. So we can really measure data over a very long period of time. We've already got 7 years of potato data. We're folding in other crops so that we know our baseline, which is absolutely crucial, because then you can tackle the biggest problems first.
Yeah, so it sounds like it's a long-term partnership commitment that allows you the surety that investing now is going to be, they'll still be there in the future.
Absolutely
Steve, do you want to give us a sense of?
Sure. So that's a question that we've always had in our farmer meetings is, do you want to have, or do you want to give the ability for somebody to buy your data? And the unfortunate part is we're involved with Bayer on the seed side, and we use their climate program to write all of our seed subscriptions. And we do put some other data in there. We don't put all of our data in, but they do have that data. They have our yield data, so they know what the soil types are, what the yield is from those soil types. And the problem comes, and John Deere is the same way if you're using the operations center. The problem is that a lot of people are fearful of giving up that data for the fact that the companies will turn around and basically charge you then for the products, a premium on the product, if they want to try to guarantee their performance of that product. So that's a little bit on the fearful side, but so far, again, I think with our data, we've paid dividends from what we've
Great.
we've used, but then nobody ever has the whole story either.
Yeah.
So
Good. I think have we got time for one question from the audience? Just one? Yep. Yep. Do you want to introduce yourself as well?
Yes, thank you. We have microphone.
Yeah, it's just coming.
It's coming.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. My name is Marina Kuzmenko, and I am from PTO. My question about data sharing, and you mentioned the long-term partnership and your data contribution as the foundation for this partnership. But are the farmers ready to share 100% of data with the government, who is also interested in all this data? But there is another problem that some farmers don't want to be overwatched, let's say, from Big Brother. So what is your opinion on this side, sharing 100% of your data with the government? Thank you.
Go on, Steve.
I'd say on our side in the United States, we have to report our acres, and then they have satellite data anyways. Now they're pulling a lot of that information from, and then if we're involved in the crop insurance program, we have to report yields for a historical insurance claim if we would have one. So, but there again, that's one aspect of the data they have. They don't have all of our data. We do have another platform that we can do some carbon sequestration programs through a third-party vendor, or Pepsi or somebody could buy those credits. But there again, that's a limited amount of data and not all the data. So
Great, thanks, Steve. Well, I think we're nearly at time, so I'll try to wrap up. The fascinating discussion. I think the first thing that I'm reflecting on, like the climate is changing in a very practical way. But there's a lot of adaptation, and Steve, I love that. Like the biggest technology innovation that you adopted was just measuring yields. And if you can't measure it, like where do we start? And I love that you've seen over 30 years like a big change in your years. And then Mark, you spoke about like, well, we're investing in action, like being able to operate more flexibly in a more volatile weather environment. And Paula, like that there's it's not just technology, it's also practices and locally appropriate practices, I think is I often find a definition of regenerative ag. And then Bing, I think my question to you is just like what noise does a shrimp make when it's hungry? And I think we're all very curious to hear more about that in the future. So thank you so much, panelists, and I'll hand back over to Apurva now.
Thank you.